The White House press briefing turned lively as Vice President JD Vance fielded sharp questions about the ongoing government shutdown and the tense negotiations with Democratic leaders. Speaking in an unhurried but firm tone, he tried to balance humor with serious political messaging as the country faces weeks of stalled federal services and growing frustration. The exchange opened with a reporter pressing Vance on the future of talks. A reporter asked, "Are there plans to meet Democratic leaders again in the coming days, or are you planning on plucking off senators one by one?" Vance, half smiling at the phrasing, invited the follow-up before giving a full answer. The reporter continued, "The president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer I saw recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeff in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?" JD Vance responded with a mix of humor and seriousness. JD Vance said, "I think it's funny. The president's joking and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions and even, poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Jeff right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop." And I've talked to the President of the United States about that. His comments reference the president's posts on social media where images of prominent Democratic leaders wearing sombreros were shared. The post sparked debate over whether such humor undermined the seriousness of the negotiations. Vance, however, brushed off the criticism, suggesting that light-hearted jokes and serious policy negotiations could coexist. Now, to your first question, are we negotiating one-on-one? Are we negotiating in groups? Look, I will go to the US Capitol right now and meet with Chuck Schumer or any Senate Democrat if it helps us reopen the government. Most of the conversations, in my experience at least, have been one-off. We're also, of course, relying on some of our Senate Republican colleagues who have good relationships across the aisle. We're going to do whatever we have to do. That is the answer. And I think it's tough to predict what shape this negotiation is going to take over the next few months. But I feel good about the fact that Democrats already realize privately the fundamental irrationality of their position. I hope that they're going to publicly acknowledge it and reopen the government. Vance's response blended political pressure with an olive branch. He suggested that while Democrats were privately aware that their position was unsustainable, they had yet to publicly concede, and he expressed hope that continued dialogue could break the impasse. As the briefing moved forward, another reporter raised a pointed historical question. The reporter asked, "You responded to a post on X, Chuck Schumer on the House floor back in 1996, railing against illegal immigrants receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. You said, Chuck Schumer once recognized that it was disastrous to give illegal aliens rewards for breaking the law. Now he wants to shut down the government unless we reward illegal aliens for breaking the law." Why has Chuck Schumer changed his stance? The question framed Schumer's evolution on immigration policy as a dramatic shift over decades. Vance paused briefly before responding, signaling the weight of the issue. That's a good question. That's actually a very tough question. Asking me to get in the head of Chuck Schumer is not a place I particularly want to be. But my basic read on it is that the entire Democratic Party, the political leadership, not every Democrat nationwide, but the political leadership of their party, has got it into their heads that the only way to be compassionate is to be compassionate to illegal aliens rather than American citizens. He went on to contrast the current Democratic stance with the positions held by the party's leaders in earlier decades. If you go back to what Bill Clinton was saying, even Barack Obama in some cases, what he was saying about illegal immigration 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would put them on the MAGA right based purely on their rhetoric around illegal immigration. So I don't know why they've gone so far to the left. I think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for them politically. Pivoting to his administration's position, Vance spoke with conviction about the principles guiding their approach to the shutdown. But our principle, all I can do is speak for the president that I serve and the country, the administration that I serve right now. We believe that the American people's government exists for the American people. That means the people who have the legal right to be here. And that's why we're fighting to reopen the government. Unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting to shut it down for the benefit of illegal aliens. His remarks underscored the central Republican argument that the budget standoff was being prolonged by Democratic demands tied to immigration policies rather than the core needs of the country. He painted the opposition as prioritizing benefits for migrants without legal status over the well-being of American citizens. The press room buzzed with activity as Vance's statements drew reactions from reporters and aides. While some journalists pressed for further clarification on negotiation tactics, others focused on the tone of the administration's messaging and its impact on bipartisan talks. Throughout the exchange, Vance maintained a composure that suggested both determination and a willingness to engage. His repeated assertion that he would meet with Schumer right now if it would help reopen the government highlighted a sense of urgency to resolve the crisis. The broader context of the standoff weighed heavily over the briefing. With the government partially shut down, hundreds of thousands of federal employees were going without paychecks. Essential services, including veterans care, air traffic control, and national parks, had been disrupted. Financial experts warned that a prolonged shutdown could erode confidence in U.S. governance and risk long-term economic harm. Against this backdrop, Vance's blend of humor and sharp criticism reflected an effort to appear approachable while maintaining a strong partisan stance. By citing historical positions of Democratic leaders such as Clinton and Obama, he sought to frame current Democratic policies as a dramatic departure from what was once mainstream. The discussion about the president's use of memes, particularly the sombrero image of Democratic leaders, highlighted the changing nature of political discourse in the digital era. What once would have been confined to backroom negotiations now played out publicly on social media, blurring the line between serious policymaking and political theater. Supporters of the administration viewed the humor as a light-hearted way to expose what they considered the contradictions in the Democratic position. Critics argued it risked trivializing an already grave situation that had left millions of Americans in uncertainty. As the questions wound down, Vance signaled his readiness to return to his duties. He said he would take a couple more questions before handing the podium back to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. His exit marked the end of a press conference that mixed policy explanations with rhetorical sparring and moments of levity. In reflecting on the briefing, it was clear that the stakes of the negotiations were far larger than the back and forth of political messaging. The shutdown had real consequences for government workers, families dependent on federal programs, and a national economy already facing challenges. Vance's insistence that the Republican leadership was open to dialogue but unwilling to compromise on what he framed as core principles signaled that the path forward would likely remain fraught with political friction. Throughout his remarks, Vance aimed to portray the administration as standing on the side of ordinary Americans. His message emphasized that the government should serve the citizens who live and work in the country legally, while accusing the opposition of elevating political ideology above practical governance. The press conference underscored not only the challenges of reaching a budget agreement, but also the deepening ideological divide over immigration policy and federal priorities. It reflected a political environment in which negotiations are as much about framing the narrative to the public as they are about finding common ground behind closed doors. As the nation watches the continuing standoff in Washington, the words and tone of leaders like Vance carry significant weight in shaping perceptions of responsibility and willingness to compromise. His combination of humor, criticism, and appeals to principle highlighted both the complexity of the negotiations and the polarized state of American politics today.